Hello, welcome to kaDON's Stage Presence and Transitions. My name is Kaoru Watanabe. In this course, we're going to be talking about stage presence and transitions. I'm going to talk about walking, standing, sitting, moving drums. I'm going to relate that to some historical context about performing arts in Japan. And there are a few goals, objectives for this course. One is looking good, not having a distracting transition, for example, or even how you stand or sit or perform. But perhaps more importantly than that, I want to talk about safety. A big part of moving drums in a way that looks good is doing it in a way that is actually safe. It's something that's stable and controlled and thought out. Okay, and some of this stuff, it seems very obvious, especially after you've been told, oh, of course, that makes sense. But I've seen a lot of taiko groups all over the world, and oftentimes there can be quite a bit of confusion, or it might be okay, but it could be that much better if there was just a little bit more guidance or thought put into how to be a little bit more efficient with all the movements. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is kind of a little bit of context. Almost all the music that is associated with taiko drums, with the shinobue, and a lot of the stuff that we've been dealing with here at kaDON comes from ritual music, whether it's festival music or accompaniment to dance, accompaniment to theater, kabuki, for example, or Noh theater, or gagaku, there's the accompaniment to dance, but even just the presentation of gagaku. A lot of the music and the performative aspects of it, the musician's role is not so much about creating the drama as much as supporting the drama, right? So for example, at the beginning of the Noh theater, the musicians are the first to enter the stage, and they're not acting per se, but they're walking in a very stately, very slow and deliberate way. And they enter the stage, the four musicians, and they begin to prepare their drums and flutes, their instruments. And again, it's not flamboyant or extravagant in their movements, but it's all very functional, very clean and effortless. It's when you see someone, a master who's dealing with their instruments, the way they handle the ropes, or there's a fan that the flute player will place on the floor. Something that's very practiced, that's very elegant, very simple. And then when the performance is over, the actors leave first, and then the last people to exit the stage are the musicians. And again, they don't just kind of stand up and walk off, but they very carefully kind of take their instruments, stand, and deliberately and slowly walk off, even though all the action's already done, and the audience is still just kind of sitting there. Patiently, the musicians walk very gracefully and slowly off the stage. And what that does is, I think it creates a sense of gravitas. It's something is about to happen, something very serious, especially in Noh theater, kabuki theater, where the audience is expected to be transported to a different world, a different time, a different era. Especially because the musicians are on stage with the actors, it's important that they carry with them that energy and the mood. And that helps sustain that. And so whatever the actors do, they're not being supported just musically, but kind of the whole demeanor is affected and supported by the musicians. The group I was in, Kodo, is also very well known for the elegance of their transitions. I remember when I was a performing member and we would tour, a day, or if not 2 days, were often devoted just to transitions. Who moves which drum at what timing, who comes out first, and who brings the stands first, and then who brings the drums out. When the piece is finished, who's going to take which stand and move it to which side of the stage. And then, especially with the younger players, there's a lot of time with critiques, right? Oh, you're walking too fast, you're walking too slow, your body is wobbling, or something is inelegant about the way people are moving. And then figuring out which drums have to go on which side. And there's a lot of things that go behind a performance that features many drums and many performers. And depending on the style of music that your group or that you play, some of this may have very little application, but some of it may. it's just really about adding a little bit more thought to the process, all the processes that lead up to the actual performances and when they finish. For those of you who've seen me perform, when I'm with kaDON, for example, I know how to turn that on. Oftentimes when I'm performing in a different musical setting, I may not have the demeanor where I'm walking very seriously and very slowly, but I might just walk out on stage very casually. I wouldn't say that's an affect, but it's a natural way that I'm still trying to support the music or the performance that I do. So if I'm in a performance where there's a lot of improvisation or collaborative work with other musicians from other parts of the world, I'm going to have a different demeanor than if I was performing with, let's say, a null actor. But the fact is, I have had training where I know how to move in those circles and be comfortable with those. So that's what we're going to talk about a lot in this course. Okay. So the first thing for this lesson is walking. And when I first became a kaDON apprentice, we spent an inordinate, at the time I thought, inordinate amount of time just walking. And even going back to Knoll Theater, they often call it as a nickname, the art of walking. So I'm going to talk about what exactly the feet are doing. And actually, to take a step back, every motion is actually going to start with the hips. Okay, so in order to go forward, the first thing I do is not actually stick my foot out, because this doesn't propel me forward at all, right? The first thing I'm going to do is have my hips pull forward, okay? And then as my hips pull forward, while I'm retaining good vertical posture with my hips and upward, as my hips are coming forward, my free foot is forced to take a step. Okay, so now I've caught my forward motion with my right foot. The heel, only the heel is touching. And as my toe comes down, my left heel starts to come up. Okay, so it's slow. It's a slow kind of transfer of weight here. What I'm trying to avoid is my foot coming out flat, because then the kind of motion, everything just kind of comes to a stop. So it's almost like they're part of one big wheel, and they're rolling. And I could even go back and forth. As one toe comes up, the heel goes down and vice versa, right? And so they're connected, the heel movement and the toe movement. And this is what allows the body to roll forward. So it's not stuck in positions, but it's and the feeling is almost as if you're rolling on wheels. And so that allows the head to be to just move at a very steady pace. Okay, so that's the mechanics. Always starting on the heel, rolling slowly through the toe as the back heel slowly lifts up. And then once you've reached beyond your vertical, your center, then your next foot simply falls forward, and then the whole process begins again. So even if I were to do it a little bit faster, you can see that's the process. One thing I didn't mention earlier is that your head shouldn't be moving up and down at all as you walk, nor of course back and forth, but your head should just be moving in a just straight, right? Just moving through space, not moving side to side. So that's how the feet go. That's what you're checking for in terms of stability. And having said all this, when you're not used to it, it's going to be very difficult, and it's very easy to kind of tense everything up. But as with all the techniques that I've been talking about, whether you're playing taiko or fue, it's very important that the upper body and the stuff that you're not using is completely relaxed. Even at this point, my knees are very relaxed. My hips are very relaxed as I'm walking through space. And that's also allowing me to be stable as I move forward. So I've been doing this for a long time. And trust me, when I was first joined kaDON and I was doing my flute solos and walking across stage, I got a lot of critique because I was nervous and stiff and very not centered. And I really took a lot of time to work on this, figure out how to move, how to keep the core strong, even though I'm relaxed and playing and trying to be expressive with the music. This is a very kind of introduction to a kind of different way of walking. Again, working on posture is a kind of a daily thing, so I encourage you to do that. Next lesson, we're going to start working about bowing, about how we turn corners and maneuver that, sitting, standing, things like that. So for now, just kind of keep working on your walking and your posture, and I'll see you next week.